Alright, so shalom, shalom, shalom. This is our brother Kahan from the GMS Prophetic Vibration Camp here with another edification through the power and spirit of Yahweh, Basham, Yahushai. So first and foremost, call Halayam, Allah, Hayanawa, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham Makakwadash, Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai. Double honors unto the apostles, the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Salutation unto the brothers who preaching and teaching this truth throughout the four corners of the earth, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more than ever. Shalom unto the speckled Israelites, along with the very few but faithful Akwat. We say shalom, shalom, shalom. Alright. The title of this edification is Be Thou a God unto Them. Alright, be thou a God unto them. Alright. Now this edification, alright, is from off of we'll be going into Clayton and Natalie Morris, alright, with their independent journalism, alright, their independent journalist channel Redacted, by the name of Redacted. Okay, in which they will be speaking not just only on the war that is taking place between, America and Israel against Iran, but more so on Putin and the measures that he is taking pursuant to the war in Ukraine, and also pursuant to Iran. Alright, so the scriptures, is literally coming off the pages, as we just see from time to time. Prophecies is being fulfilled. Alright, so what we will be doing here with this edification is we will be going through the clip, alright, the video, and we'll be filtering it out through the scriptures, but I will be going to my hard copy for the scriptures. Alright, I'll be going to my hard copy for the scriptures, so without further ado, let's get on with the program.
Russian President Putin is facing criticism in Russia for not doing enough to end the war in Ukraine, and now he's facing pressure to do something about the war in Iran. Now, some say that he should be doing in Ukraine what the U.S. and Israel is doing in Iran, which I guess is balls to the walls, right? Can I say balls?
You did.
I did, yeah, balls to the walls. I don't know if that's a good template, though. I don't know if you want to do it our way, if you just listen to Colonel McGregor. But on Russian talk shows now, they're saying President Putin is dependent on his personal relationship with Donald Trump, and that's why he hasn't ended the war in Ukraine. That stalled peace negotiations, which are heavily criticized there. So what can Russia even do in Iran while it still is entangled in its own war at home? Russian leaders are saying they will do something, namely stop the flow of energy to anyone who is supporting this war. Here is Sergei Lavrov saying exactly that.
For our strategic partners, we will continue to maintain dialogue with these countries, and we'll do our best to, including with other countries of the international community, in the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations General Assembly. We'll do everything to create an atmosphere that will make this operation impossible.
Okay, so we're going to talk in a minute about what that means. President Putin is saying he also can stop the flow of energy to Europe. He was sort of spitballing in this interview. You can look that up if you want, but it is in Russian. Why would he do this? Europe will be dragged into the conflict because they...
So you see in that first piece there, the Russians, basically they have a trump card up their sleeves, you know, where this war in Ukraine is concerned and what have you so forth. All right, they have a trump card pursuant to, you know, their resources. All right, because Europe, all right, which is the bottomless pit, they do not have the resources as Russia has, pursuant to oil and gas and what have you so forth. All right, and not only that, the access to get it, you know, for the access to in order for these other nations, European nations, you know, for them to receive it, you know, that these things is up there. That is their trump card. That is one of their trump card, besides their military might and what have you so forth. Because if you had to remember, you had to put into serious consideration, you know, America, they, during the Biden administration, you know, they had make things difficult, you know, for these European nations to do energy trade and what have you so forth with the Russians by the way of sanctions and what have you so forth, and the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline and what have you so forth, you know. But at the same time, you know, these European nations, they're seeing that, you know, they shoot themselves in the foot, you know. And now he has the upper hand, especially pursuant to the Ukraine war and what have you so forth, where nations within Europe who still want to hold on and side with Ukraine and what have you so forth, he has the upper hand to literally, you know, starve them, you know, of energy supply, supply of energy pursuant to oil and natural gas and what have you so forth. All right. This is what it is here, and the good part about it is, you know, these nations, they cannot bully the resources out of Russia. All right, so let's continue. Why I keep doing that?
Of them are in NATO, even though many NATO members are saying they don't want anything to do with this, namely Italy and Spain. They may not have a choice. Now, earlier today, Iranian foreign minister said this when asked about how Russia and China are helping.
Are your allies Russia and China helping you?
Well, they are supporting us politically and otherwise.
Are they supporting you militarily?
Well, military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not a secret. You know, we have worked with each other in the past, and that has continued. You know, and will continue. I guess.
Yeah, it will continue. All right, it will continue because that is the working of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, that's prophecy. Let's get to the scripture. Let's start to get to the scripture. All right, this is Ezekiel. We're going straight to the point. No beating around the bush. All right, we're going to Ezekiel chapter 38. Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech, and Tubal. All right, which this is speaking of Russia. All right, when they go and research the maps of old during those days, those biblical timing, when those nations, these respective nations, were going by the biblical name, and what have you so forth. All right, you would see the land of Gog and Magog is actually modern day Russia. All right, but the people that is in the land, that is the Russians that are in the land now, the people that call themselves Russians, you know, they are not of the true nationality pursuant to Gog and Magog, which was Japhet at the time. All right. But this is code name, you know, so to speak. This is code name pursuant to, you know, Russia. All right. When they go on, you research the words I think his prince, yeah, the prince was the chief actually. When it's really so when you research it with chief and you research it with Meshach, you know, Meshach is translated now into the, into Moscow. All right, chief goes into oh Lord, I forgot the Hebrew word for chief, and I think it's Ra or Shah. I think it's Shah. All right, but nevertheless, it is speaking of the Russians. All right, and prophesy against him. Say thus say the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahshua, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach, and Tubal. All right, Tubal, which goes into Tbilisi, all right, which is modern day Georgia. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with buckler and shield, all of them handling swords. All right, and who is joined unto them? Persia, all right, which is modern day Iran. Okay, Iran changed their name from Persia to Iran, all right, back in 1935. And it says Ethiopia and Libya with all of them, all right, with shields and helmets. Goma and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, which is Turkey, and the north quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, all right, and they are prepared, and they have been being prepared, all right, pursuant to this war in Ukraine. All right, they've been being prepared. Okay, it says, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all the company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So, where you have Russia, you know, coming to the aid by the way of arming, you know, arming Iran and what have you, so forth. This is what the scripture has spoken before time. All right? This is what the scripture had spoken before time, as the scripture say, I think like Romans 14, I believe. I think it's Romans 14, a while, or Romans 15, I believe. I think it's Romans 15. I think it's Romans 15. Where is Romans 15? All right, yeah, Romans 15 and 4, where it reads, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. So these things here, you know, and what has increased on our hope, our faith even more, is because the words standing faithful and true. All right, the prophecies are standing faithful and true. Pursuant to 2nd Ezra 15, let me see if I can get that. 2nd Ezra 15. You know, let's get that 2nd Ezra 15. Almost there. Alright. 2nd Ezra 15. And 1, it reads, behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. All right? So, the prophecy of Russia aligning with Iran, and Russia being a guard unto Iran and all the other nations that was within the BRICS and whatever, so forth, you know, and nations that is really and truly against the West and against Israel. All right? You know, we see in that prophecy being fulfilled before our eyes. All right? There is what it is. Okay? So let's continue here.
And they're actively helping you in this war?
Well, they have always helped us.
So I'm gonna understand that to mean yes, that they are actively assisting you in this war?
Well, I'm not going to give the details of our cooperation with other countries right in the middle of the war.
Khan, you're right.
Okay.
You're right,
What
Foreign
does that mean
Minister.
exactly?
You're right, Foreign Minister. You ought to give all the details. There's no need for you to give all the details as pursuant to what the Russians is doing for you all and what have you so for the armaments and hey, who knows if the Russians must be arming them with the oceanic, all right, which is a serious game changer, all right. You don't want the West to know nothing about that. There is nothing for the West to know. There is something so that should be classified. You understand?
Helping. Where does Russia stand? Joining us to discuss is Jim Jatras. He's a former State Department official and an expert in U.S.-Russia relations. Good to see you, Jim. Thank you for offering your expertise. So what do you... Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You take it.
No, Natalie Clayton, thank you. Doug McGregor, tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. Thank you.
All right, game on. What do you think? Give us the overall.
Well, I think you actually outlined it very well in your introduction. A lot of this has to do with how President Putin views President Trump. I mean, when we talk about U.S.-Russia relations and what's the nexus between the two major theaters right now, Ukraine and Iran, it's these two New York flim-flam artists, Witkoff and Kushner, that the Russians have been repeatedly meeting with so they can talk about big business deals and land and money and bloody baby, just think of the tax write-off and whatever kind of nonsense they're trying to sell the Russians on a ceasefire. The Russians have been polite with this. Maybe they even took it seriously because they say, hey, wait, these guys have got a direct line to Trump. And now I think, even though the mirage that there's some kind of a deal possible with Trump, with the United States, that the United States could possibly negotiate in good faith, even Vladimir Putin cannot believe that anymore. He was disappointed that he thought he had a handshake deal with Trump over Ukraine at Anchorage, the spirit of Anchorage. Now we see these same two guys engaged in this treachery, and I think that's the only word for it.
Precept, all right? That is why the scriptures say two scriptures for that. The first one will be Wisdom of Solomon. Not Wisdom of Solomon, will be Sirach actually. Will be Sirach chapter 12. Alright, Sirach chapter 12. Why the hell are still in Wisdom of Solomon? Alright, so Sirach chapter 12 and verse 10, where it reads, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust has not been altogether wiped away. Alright, so the Russians, they know for a fact, they know this, they've been seeing the nature of Babylon the Great. Alright, they've been seeing the nature of Babylon the Great. And there is no, how to put this, boy, there is no foreseeable future where the Russians is concerned pursuant to making any deal, any agreement with America, with Babylon the Great, because they know that America will always break the deal, will always break whatever deal and whatever so forth. All right, look, take for instance, there was a deal, a long-standing deal or treaty, I would say, with America and Russia pursuant to short-range ballistic missiles and what have you, so forth, what have you. And the America, Trump, I would say, America, but Trump, your boy Trump, he broke off on that deal. All right, he broke off on that deal. Okay, so that what? So that all the NATO nations that that are surrounding Russia and what have you so forth, they could be able to now deploy intermediate range missiles, ballistic missiles that could have nuclear warheads attached to it and what have you so forth. You understand? This is what it is here. That is why the scriptures say Psalms 55 and 20, where it reads, He had put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He had broken his covenant. The word of his mouth was smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So this is the thing here. Alright? And we see this is the same thing with Iran. It's the same thing with Iran. Twice, 2 occasions, man, last year and this year, whilst they're in talks, whilst Iran is in talks with America, pursuant to, the nuclear deal and what have you, so forth. What did America do? America attacked them on the both occasions. You understand? And it's the same thing that Putin is seeing, and he, as smart as he is showing that he's not stupid to fall in such a trap. All right, there's what it is.
Negotiate with the Iranians while we set up to just kill them, to knock them out, to decapitate them. So I think you're right that the pressure on President Putin to finally drop this illusion that he can negotiate a deal with his friend President Trump is finally gone, that the pressure is going to be on him very strongly to move forthrightly in Ukraine. Again, the question you asked, why aren't they launching a decapitation strike of that sort against the Kiev regime?
Khan. This is what the Russians, because the vast public of within Russia, and what have you so forth, they're seeing the nonsense, all right, of America, all right, and they're like, hey, stop pussyfooting, all right, do what you have to do, get rid of this, come put this, how to put it, rack up this thing. Do what you have to do. Take the gloves off, and the same way how America is carrying out decapitating strikes on Iran, do it on Ukraine too, the same way, and let we get this thing over with. All right, let we get this thing over with, and stop pussyfooting with America and trying to dance with America. All right. Because at the end of it all, they will what? You dancing, whilst you dancing with America, all right, they're looking to trip you. They're looking to trip you and make you fall. All right? There's where it is. So basically, they are letting Putin know, hey, we can't play for slips here. All right? We either we do what it is we had to do, and set the record straight, and fuck away with America, or you're just continuing to dance with these people and pussyfoot with these people, and in turn, you get what you're looking for. That's why the scriptures say again, hey, I have to go back to that Sirach. I have to go back to that Sirach, chapter 12. Sirach, chapter 12. And 13, where it reads, who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beasts? So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? All right, who will pity? All right, so basically, Putin, stop playing with these people and send your record straight to these people and draw the line. Yeah, draw the line. That is where it is. That is where, you know, the hardliners, you know, this is what they're saying, basically, in a nutshell.
You see Israel and the United States repeatedly employing against, you know, not only Hezbollah and also trying against Hamas, negotiations in Doha, and now doing it twice with respect to Iran. So I think the bellwether we're going to see here is twofold. One is, will the Russians change their behavior in Ukraine? And secondly, when Trump wants to declare a win and get out, which I think is his only way out of this at this point, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you know, at the maximum before he's supposed to go see President Xi in Beijing. At some point, when he wants to get out and say, okay, we've accomplished our mission, another win for Trump, I've solved my 84th war, do the Iranians let him off the hook? You know, when the Russians and the Chinese see that here's the United States with our, you know, mammary gland caught in the ringer, do they want to let us go now? And if Iran is getting the advantage, we've exhausted our interceptors, do they want to keep pounding us away? And do the Russians and the Chinese see an opportunity to bleed us white in Iran the same way we tried to bleed the Russians white in Ukraine?
Well, the big medical hack of 2025 would get involved if your enemies are shooting them. Again, that is twc.health/redacted to save $60 off plus free shipping. So, Jim, you know the old saying, right? Don't get involved if your enemies are shooting themselves in the foot. Why in the world would Russia jump into this if the United States is incapacitating itself completely, running through its munitions right now, having to call CEOs of Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and all of these defense contractors to the White House in order to basically beg them to make more Tomahawk missiles because...
Why Russians? Well, because it's prophecy. It doesn't matter, see, you have to understand this. It doesn't matter of you know, whether Iran is holding out their own against America, and America, you know, is continually sinking themselves into their own selves into the abyss and whatnot and so forth. That's not the point. The point about it is, you know, is prophecy. All right, they're the point. Prophecy. All right, because Russia is the nation. You know, Russia is who the Lord choose to be the ones to destroy Babylon the Great. That is where it is. That is why when I go to Isaiah 13, jump straight on it, boy. Isaiah 13 and 17, where it reads, Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver nor gold, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity upon the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. And Babylon, America, Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' excellency, shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Because when you go up in this very same chapter, I will start from verse 4, where it reads, the noise of Isaiah 13 and 4, the noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as a great people. All right, this is the nations gathering together. All right, their respective militaries. A tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the hosts of the battle. They come from a far country, which is Russia, from the end of heaven, even the Lord, and the weapons of his indignation, all right, which is what? Which is the nuclear missiles, the warheads, to destroy the whole land. All right, there is where it is. There is where it is. You know, this is because this is what the Lord prophesied. All right, you read Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, you know, and what have you, so forth. You know, this is the judgment that the Lord has for America, Babylon the Great, by the way of thermonuclear fire, by the way of the Russians, you know, bringing forth that destruction. All right, this what you're seeing here, Clayton. What you don't, what basically you don't know, is that this is prophecy you're seeing before your eyes. All right, blatant prophecy that you are witnessing. You know, it's just that you know you don't have the eye salve. You don't have the eye salve to see it. All right, but there is what it is. Prophecy. All right, let's continue.
Exhausted our supplies in Ukraine, so Putin could sort of sit back and sort of wait, circle the wagons, and watch as the United States really shoots itself in the foot here. Do you anticipate any change to the Ukraine war? Putin maybe doing something more, you know, as the spring unfolds here, as the ground unfreezes and they start to move towards spring weather?
You know, Clayton. You know, one of the frustrating things about the Russians I've learned over several decades is that whatever you do in their circumstances, they never do. And they do something else, you say, why the hell do they do that? So, yeah, there are an awful lot of people I know in Moscow from many sources have been pressing for a long time to have a change in strategy. And it seems that Vladimir Putin in particular, and there's some other people, Nabiullina, the head of the central bank and so forth, have been pressing, no, we have to be cautious, we have to show restraint, we have to keep the door open to negotiation. And if you look at the way they've been conducting the war, it is been what I call pedagogical. It has not been designed to achieve a military victory, but rather to force the other side to meet the minimal terms that they set out in June 2024, the four oblasts, Crimea, neutrality, and all that. And that was an illusion from the start. And I think, you know, I'm not questioning the military competence of the Russian armed forces, but rather the political competence of understanding the mentality of people in the Western capitals who are really, let's be honest about it, cutthroats. I mean, they simply do not take honestly any.
Russia is just playing the long game. That is what it is. Russia is just playing the long game. Alright? Russia is just playing the long game. But pretty soon, you know, pretty soon they're going to go for that killer strike, that killer blow. All right, and then switch things all fully over onto America directly. All right, pursuant to Iran. There's where it is. Russia is just playing the waiting game, the long game. All right, they're not even using their full force, their full strength, their full military strength. That's just a small percentage. There is what it is. All right. So it says, let's go.
Prospect of negotiation. I don't know if the Russians have finally figured that out. I certainly would have if I were in their shoes a long time ago. You'd think now there's simply no excuse for President Putin to maintain this illusion of a negotiation. But I honestly don't know what they will do. I would think that at some point they will decide they've lost so many men. They're still under economic pressure from sanctions. You know, killing Ukrainians, I mean, these people are basically Russians anyway. That's still a loss for the Russians.
That's the thing. Again, the Russians, they don't care about sanctions. All right? They don't care about sanctions. All the sanctions that was put upon them because of the invasion of Ukraine and whatever so forth, they still have managed to keep their heads above the waters, weather the storm, and prosper. All right. I'm going back to the Isaiah 13 and 17. All right. We have to go back to that. Isaiah 13 and 17, where it reads, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver And as for gold, they shall not delight in it. All right. So America and the European Union and what have you so forth, they could place how much sanctions that they want to put on Russia. That ain't gonna stop the Russians, and that ain't gonna stop, the rest of you Edomites from getting a judgment by the hands of the Russians. All right, which is the purpose of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. This is what it is. All right, there's one in I think it's in Ezekiel 38. I had to look for it. Ezekiel 38. Let me see from verse 8. Let me see. Bear with me. Thou shalt say. Thou say the Lord, it shall come to pass. At the same time, these things shall come to my mind. No, I thought there was one in Ezekiel 38 I was mistaken. Salakia about that. But yeah, the Russians don't care about sanctions and what have you so forth. Alright, because at the end of the day, that is spirit that Yahweh Shai put in them. And the Lord, He made sure and sustain the Russians. Alright. Make sure that they didn't crumble under these crippling sanctions and what have you so forth. And they have managed to survive and prosper. Alright? And carry on. And carry on strong at that. Alright? This is what it is.
And the Russians. Anyway, at some point, you decide why we keep losing people in this when we could end this war by destroying the Kiev regime. And I don't know if they will do that.
Can I follow up here? Because, the real clear. So, the one side, you got Ukraine, right, where they're obviously preoccupied, but the other side is this is barreling towards a world war. So,
exactly, yes.
What exactly does the Russian relationship with Iran versus Israel? Putin had, over the 5 months ago, was talking about how many, Jewish Russians live in Israel. So, the relationship is very muddy.
It is, and of course that has been damaged somewhat because of Israeli support for the Ukrainians. So that relationship is not what it was. Again, you get a lot of speculation in Russia, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about how strong the Chabad organization is in Russia, how much influence it has on Putin. People tell me it has influence, but not the same degree of, let's be honest about it, control that, big Jewish money and evangelical Christian Zionists have here in the United States over the political class in Washington, but it is a factor. How strong a factor is, I don't know. And what are the countervailing? Remember, Putin is not a dictator. He's a manager. He's a manager over a rather diverse set of pressures and interests that he's trying to balance in some way. Back to the Iran thing, I think they have to worry about what Colonel McGregor said, that if the Iranians do press their advantage, that very well could lead to an Israeli nuclear response. That's something they obviously have to worry about. But they also have to consider that, okay, when the Americans are ready to declare a victory and go home, and do the Iranians step down, or do they say to themselves, if we step down, fine, we've survived. That's a victory of sorts. But that all it means is we're going to give the Americans and Israelis another chance to come back and hit them again in 6 months or a year.
Which we believe through the power and spirit of Yahweh Hashem Shai, this thing ain't really going to die down, but this thing is going to escalate. All right, it's going to escalate, in which it could be and end up being the catalyst for the downfall of the world economy and the microchip to come into play and what have you so forth, all right, which will in turn, usher in the nuclear war, all right, because the mark of the beast has to come into play first before the nuclear war take place and what have you, you know. But yeah, yeah, it is what it is, man.
We had a chance to reload. So, that's a dilemma for everybody involved.
Well, given what a shit starter the U.S. is, you can see why Russia would be kind of motivated, to help the Iranians either directly or indirectly. And so, what capacity?
It's going for now it may be indirectly, all right. For now it may be indirectly, all right. But pretty soon it's going to be directly, all right. Pretty soon, it's going to be directly, all right. Where the Russians they're going to get involved fully into this war, because this is going to be the Third World War. All right, they're going to get themselves fully involved. All right, along with Turkey and what have you, so forth. And this is going to bring the destruction of America, because again, this is prophecy, and this is the purpose of Yahweh Baal Shem Yahushai. All right, and the Lord's intention is to waste America the same way how he wasted Sodom and Gomorrah. All right.
And there's no deterrence now. They've been sanctioned to within an inch of their life. So what? The U.S. doesn't have the...
That is what I just said. You see, that is what I just said. The Russians, they don't care about sanctions. All right, they don't care about sanctions. They have managed to rise, above, the waters, so to speak, lack of better terms. All right, and they've been carrying on business as usual. All right, yes, the sanctions go create little hiccups, this, that, the other, but hey, they've been carrying on. All right, they've been managing to continue to develop their weapons and what have you, so forth, and doing all what they have to do to carry on. All right. And nothing ain't going to stop them. Nothing ain't going to stop them.
Capacity to fight Iran and Russia at the same time militarily. So why the hell not? Right? Is that sort of their position of like, yeah, we can help the Iranians, but how direct do you think it will be?
Very much direct.
In terms of helping the Iranians, I don't think the Russians would get directly involved if they can possibly avoid it. Now, there are some things they might do. For example, I understand that the Israelis have a submarine capability launch for their nuclear weapons. If that's the case, are the Israeli subs being shadowed by Russian subs, and will sink them if they think the Israelis are about to launch their nuclear weapons? That's the only place I can see the Russians would be directly involved militarily, although you can be sure that there are Russian personnel in Iran today with their air defense systems and maybe even piloting some of their aircraft.
Be the wagaran to them.
Yeah, I guess that's the real question here. I mean, and you have the Chinese angle in all of this as well.
Yeah.
So
that is another thing by itself.
He made a good point.
That is another thing by itself. The Chinese. Can't forget them. Yeah, that is another thing by itself. The Chinese. This thing is going to get real bloody. Alright? It's going to get real bloody. Alright? And this is what Joel chapter 3 explains here, which we're going to get. Alright? The book of Joel. Gone too far. Gone too far. This is the book of Joel chapter 3 and verse 9. It reads, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. let the heathen be weakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Alright? So this is something that it's going to be, you know, so ferocious. Alright, World War III is going to be a war that, you know, they ain't gonna have no kind of rules of engagement, basically. Let's just put it that way. They ain't gonna have no kind of rules of engagement and this and that and the other. It ain't gonna have, you know, anything about, you know, consideration for the Geneva Convention and war crimes and this and that and the other. No. It ain't gonna have that. All gloves is gonna be off, alright? And these nations is going to slug it out to the bloody end in whatever way they could slug it out. Alright? In whatever way they could be able to cause mass death and destruction without remorse. There's what it is. That is why the scripture says, continuing, it says here, verse 13, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, and the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. Alright? So China is going to get into it. North Korea is going to get into it. Alright? Turkey is going to get into it. Ethiopia, Libya, alright? They all going to get into it. Along with other nations, alright? And militant groups and what have you, so forth, is going to get into it. And it's going to reach towards such a disastrous point, you know, that America and Israel is going to stand alone, because the scripture talks of, you know, those that was allied with America deceived her. Alright? They had deceived her. And they know they're going to burn her with fire and what have you, so forth. Revelation 17 and 16. You understand? There's what it is here. The Chinese, they have a lot to say and a lot to play with. Alright? There's what it is.
About the meeting coming up with Xi Jinping, it will be very embarrassing for President Trump if he's still leading this bloody unsuccessful war and he meets in China.
He'll want to go to Beijing having declared himself a winner, and you'd think it would be in the Russian as well as the Iranian interest not to let him do that, and may also be in the Chinese interest not to do that. I mean, after all, the Chinese, what's their short-term interest? Turn the energy spigot back on. They want that back on. But both the Americans and the Israelis have made it clear they want this to be the showdown with the Iranians. They want to put an end to the Iranian threat. Well, you'd think that would work on the other side, too.
Which goes into what? Which goes into what? Which goes into Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, Jeremiah 50 actually. Alright, and 45, where it reads, therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord, that he had taken against Babylon, and his purpose that he had purpose against the land of the Chaldeans. Alright, the Chaldeans are the elites. Alright, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out, surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Alright, at the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved and the cry is heard among the nations. So Babylon and Israel is hell bent. They are hell bent, alright, on going to war with Iran and what have you, so forth. But it's not going to go or work the way that they thought or planned. Alright? It's going to backfire on them, because the Lord said he would have war with Amalek. from generation to generation. And the Lord's purpose also is to destroy Babylon the Great, which is America. So it's going to backfire on them. The scripture talk about and Babylon came into the remembrance of the Lord. Alright, Revelation 16 and 19, I believe. Yeah, there's where it is.
If the Iranians, backed up by the Russians and the Chinese, saying, we're going to drive the Americans out of the Middle East, we're going to crush Israel, we're going to get rid of all the American bases, force them to pull out, you'd think they don't want to go through this again in a few months too, especially since the prospect for escalation might even be greater then. Again, it's a real tightrope. How much are you going to risk triggering a global conflict versus how much can you maybe reduce the prospects of a global conflict by finishing it now?
How about you want to bet? I'm not polymarket, Jim, but I'm going to bet. I'll just lay down this bet right now that meeting with Xi Jinping
Will get canceled.
is going to get canceled. It's going to be postponed.
I think there's a very good chance of that, depending on how long this goes on.
Yeah, because everybody fed up of Babylon. Everybody fed up of Babylon. Alright? Everybody's fed up of Babylon. Look now, the Iranian, they're like, hey, we don't want no more negotiations. We're not even for a cease friggin' fire. Alright? And I again, you know, I'm saying, you know, I'm speaking as a man. Alright, who is to say that, seeing that the Iranians are not really too favoring of any sort of negotiation talks with Babylon, alright, that they're gonna pass the order, they're gonna revoke the fatwa that the deceased Ayatollah had once put out. You know, they're gonna revoke it and pass the order. Hey, let's start to make these bombs. Let's start to make these warheads. Who knows? Alright? And likewise for the Chinese, you know, who knows if they really and truly, as Clayton said, they might cancel the meeting. Alright? There's waiters here. That is why the scripture said the king's heart is in the hands of the Lord. And he turneth it whithersoever he will. As a river, you know. He turneth it whithersoever he will. That's just a stay, you know. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
And again, there's so many imponderables here. You know, we're getting propaganda from both sides. How badly degraded are the Iranian air defenses? We don't know. I've seen reports we've used the B-52s, which you think we would not want to use if there was any chance they could be shot down. But I don't know to what extent that's propaganda, that they're still firing standoff weapons, that they're not risking flying over Iranian airspace. There's so much we don't know about how this war is unfolding. And remember, it's still very young. And to what extent the Iranians have not seen any attrition in their capability to strike with drones and with ballistic missiles, but are simply waiting for the degradation of our interceptor force, where they can strike targets with impunity, and how far they will want to push it. Which, as you say, we got a nuclear risk there.
Yeah. Jim Jotras, thank you so much. No one would rather talk to who's plugged in on the Russian side of things more than you. So thank you for your perspective on this. It is interesting now to see President Putin throwing his hat into the rhetoric ring right now with all of this. Thanks so much, Jim. Great to see you.
Thank you.
There's waiters here, man. Putin is being a god unto them. Alright? Russia is being a god unto them. And this thing is going to blow out of proportion pretty soon. Alright? So I would leave with this last scripture here, which is Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, chapter 9 and verse 5, where it reads, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments roll in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire, man. There is what this whole thing is going to become. So with that, I hope you all was edified through the power and spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, your brother Kahan, GMS Prophetic Vibration Camp, signing out, saying Kal Halayam, La Alahayanawa, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles, the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Salutation unto the brothers, preaching and teaching us truth through the four corners of the earth, risking their lives. Freedom to do so no more than ever. Shalom unto the Spakabod Israelites, along with the very few but faithful Akwat. We say Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. Wa Bad Babal.